Hello and welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick and this is our full review of the New Balance Fresh Foam X Hierro V9. So the Hierro V9 is a trail running shoe that is designed to be a versatile one that can handle a lot of terrains. In the past, the Hierro has very much been a road to trail model, and I think that is still true of the Hierro V9, but it now has a revamped outsole that I do think makes it a bit more suitable for a range of trails as well. I'm not holding it right now because it's muddy. I've been using it in the UK in the winter, and even though I've knocked off some of the mud, it's still a bit too grim to have in my hands right now. It costs $155 in the US. I don't know the UK prices yet, but the previous model was £140. I think the price has risen slightly in the US, so it might also rise a little bit in the UK as well. It weighs in at 311 grams or 10.9 ounces in a UK size 9, which is a US 9.5. It has a 4mm drop, and the full stack height is 42mm at the heel, 38 at the forefoot. So it's a big cushioned shoe, but also that might include the outsole, which is pretty substantial as well. You have a mesh upper on the shoe with a nice amount of padding around the tongue and collar. It very much feels like a road shoe in the way it has step-in comfort, but then you've got protective overlays on the shoe and a big toe bumper on it as well for the trails, and quite a lot of structure around the heel to make sure you've got enough support there. You have a dual density Fresh Foam X midsole with a softer layer on the top and a firmer layer on the bottom to deliver a nice soft and cushioned feeling on landing, but still have the stability you need on the trails. This is not like the softest version of Fresh Foam X, I'd say, as well, compared to some of the stuff on road shoes. New Balance uses that term for a material that has quite a wide range of different feels, and even though it has that softer top layer, this is still a fairly firmish foam. You've got a Vibram Megagrip outsole on the shoe that's been revamped for the 9th version of the shoe. You now have 4.5mm lugs, so deeper lugs that are on the previous model, and they're reshaped the pattern as well. So even though the lugs are still pretty broad to give you that comfort on harder trails, I think you will have quite a lot of bite with the shoe. Well, I know you will because I've used it in soft conditions, but yeah, you've got a lot more bite, I would say, on the latest version of the Hierro V9, which just makes it more of an all conditions cruiser in the UK in particular, where there is a lot of soft trails with bits of mud on them. This is still, a road to trail shoe, very much a very approachable trail shoe that lots of people can pick up to use for mostly road running and a bit of park paths, that kind of thing. I think it now has a bit more range in terms of the trails you can tackle comfortably in it. When it comes to the fit of the New Balance Hierro V9, I've got a UK 9, a US 9.5. That's the normal size I use with New Balance shoes, and I would say the fit is in line with other New Balance shoes, but maybe I could have gone a half size up. So the fit of the shoes is fine if I was using it on the roads all the time, but when I'm on the trails, I think you need a little bit more room in the front of the shoe, in particular when coming down hills. I did notice my foot hitting the front of the shoe a little bit, especially my right foot, which is slightly larger than my left when I was coming down hills. You've got that substantial toe bumper there, so it's not very flexible or accommodating forefoot because you're getting that extra protection. So I would probably go half size up myself. In general, I'm in between a US 9.5 and a 10, so maybe if you're in a similar position, it might be worth looking at going a half size up. Similarly, if you know your size in New Balance road shoes, you might want to go half size up to have that little bit of extra room on the trails, and that's especially true if you're looking at this for really long runs. Like I've gone up to about 20k in the shoe on my longest run, and it was fine, but like I say, on downhills, I did notice I was hitting the front of the shoe a little bit more than I'd like, ideally. So as someone in between sizes, I'd probably go for the larger size myself if picking up the shoe again. So I've run 50k in the New Balance Hierro V9, and I've done that all in my local forest here in the UK, in North London. So it's been a fair mix of conditions because we have had a real cold snap lately. So there's been some icy trails to run on, as well as the usual mud, plenty of mud even on the main trails at this time of year, and some harder packed, slightly gravelly paths and just hard packed trails in general. Done it across a range of basically daily training runs. Like as part of my marathon training, I used it for one of my long runs of 90 minutes, so around 20k that was, and then a couple of shorter daily training runs as well. It definitely feels like that's the way to use this shoe. It's like a cushioned road shoe that you basically can take onto a wider range of trails, and I have really enjoyed using it in that way. You have got a lot of cushioning here underfoot, and while the outsole does reduce how cushioned it feels because you've got that harder layer on the bottom, it sticks up a little bit from the road, you're not getting the sink-in squishiness of something like the New Balance 1080, but it is certainly a really comfortable and protective shoe, and I really appreciate that in particular on my long run, which is at the end of a big week of mileage, marathon training, like I say, and it worked well for that. Protects the legs whilst giving you that capacity to go onto the trails a bit more than you get with road shoes, because you have now got a pretty serious outsole on this shoe that I found has gripped really well for me in the UK winter here in the forest. So as mentioned, I have used it on a mix of trails, even gone onto some soft muddy grass in it as well, and you are getting a lot more bite with the shoe than you have with past models of the Hierro, in my experience anyway, which are always very slippery in the woods. Like any kind of patch of mud would see them come unstuck. I didn't actually use the Hierro V8, which I think had a slightly better outsole than the one before, but yeah, in my experience, it's not been a shoe that I'd have used a lot myself, because like I say, the forest where I run all my kind of trail runs throughout the winter is just a bit too muddy for it, and now with this latest version, you know, it works perfectly for it, because there are still lots of hard paths in the forest. I'm using it on the road to and from it as well, and it does now have the grip for the muddy sections because those lugs have enough bite. You know, they have kind of similar levels of bite to something like the Hoka Speed Goat or the Merrell Agility Peak 5. You know, really good, versatile all-rounder shoes that, you know, lean more towards hard trails, I'd say, but have enough bite for the main trails in the forest like this. I wouldn't be taking the New Balance Hierro onto like a pure fell run or onto the real swampy patches of the forest around me, but you know, it's not going to be terrible there if you're only having short sections, and you now definitely have enough grip for just general runs without thinking about it. You know, just put on the shoe, hit the trails, and it's going to be able to cope with pretty much the majority of what you're going to throw at it. It is still, I'd say, more focused on those hard trails, like I say, and it did grip really well for me on the icy run I did in it today, actually. I wasn't actually expecting it to be icy. I didn't think the temperature had been that low, but even on the kind of patches of icy pavements to and from the forest, you know, the grip worked really well. So you have really got now a versatile shoe in terms of the grip and terrains it covers, and that's great because you're coupling that with a very comfortable midsole that offers a lot of protection, a lot of durability as well. Upper's pretty comfortable as well, all round and protective. You know, it's a really nice package as a, you know, a comfort-focused trail shoe that can now handle good range of trails. And even though the outsole, I think, has now got that bit more grip and they've gone for those longer lugs, I don't think you've lost a load of comfort on the trails. Like, I don't think this is going to be as comfortable as maybe, I think the Hierro 7 was the last shoe I tried, which was very comfortable on the road. You know, something like the Nike Pegasus Trail as well, like really comfortable on the road, those shoes, but don't have much bite. I still think you're getting a lot of comfort on the road with the Hierro, but you now have a lot more bite on mixed terrains. Don't think I necessarily see it as a shoe I'd want to just spend an entire run on a road maybe, but for things like canal towpaths and stuff like that, you know, it's still got a lot of comfort for those, and now you have got that extra grip on more treacherous trails. And the last word on the run test would be, you know, kind of versatility for pace. Like, it's a fairly heavy shoe. I think actually the weight's that bad given the level of cushioning you have here and the outsole, but it's not really one that's built for faster runs. Like, it's more for those relaxed long runs on the trails. Maybe you look at something like a trail marathon shoe. Like, I'm not a big ultra runner myself, but I do think this would be a pretty comfortable option for that kind of thing as well, especially with that greater versatility you get from the outsole. But yeah, it's not one that you'd go and sprint a quick race in on the trails. It's, you know, it's a big shoe designed more for cruising. So my verdict is that I really enjoyed running in the New Balance Hierro V9. It's a shoe that very much suits my needs very well on the trails as a comfortable shoe. Like, most of my runs on the trails are easy recovery runs in between hard road runs. It does those really well, and you can now pull it on pretty confident if you're in a new area that it's going to be able to handle whatever trails throw at you. Definitely got a good active holiday vibe to it as well. Like, the colour I've got, the green, is actually quite a nice looking shoe. It's ruined now with all the mud, but if you cleaned it up, that's, you know, quite a nice shoe to take away for you. Good for hiking off-road as well. Good for runs on pretty much any kind of terrain, and, you know, a really comfortable and enjoyable shoe to wear. It's still not a shoe that's, you know, going to be ideal for like fell running. I'm not sure about its chops on the mountains as well, because it is a big shoe. It's not very nimble and agile and that kind of thing, but for general forest runs, you know, park path runs, mix of road and trail runs, general hard gravelly trail runs that you'll get a lot of, I think, in the US in particular, like, it does all those really, really well. Grips well, it's comfortable, feels nice on the foot. I do think that almost sits in between the kind of road to trail and all-roundery category of shoes. Like, you have got stuff like the Hoka Challenger, which I think is probably a bit more comfortable on the road, but doesn't have quite as much bite as the Hierro, I would say, potentially on the trails, but, you know, actually fairly similar shoes all round. The Challenger is another shoe I rate really highly. I think it does have better grip than the Nike Pegasus Trail. Then if you look at the more of the all-rounders, like the Hoka Speed Goat 5, I think maybe has a little bit more bite all round, and in general I think it's a more reliable and agile shoe on really technical trails. I think it's a bit more nimble and that kind of thing, but I do think you get a bit more comfort out of the Hierro. It's quite similar to something like the Merrell Agility Peak 5 in that regard. You know, very comfortable shoe, but I do think the New Balance is more comfortable again for those cruising runs, but you've got a slightly more capable shoe on technical trails, I think, in the Agility Peak 5, which again is a little bit non-nimble as well. The Saucony shoes, I think it's more like something like the Exodus than the Peregrine. The Peregrine isn't as comfortable as the Hierro. It's lower stacked. It's got an outsole that's more configured, I think, for soft ground than the Hierro, but, you know, it is a really good shoe, again, in the UK winter, but I now think something like the Hierro would probably, you know, cope with most of the same stuff in the winter, but then be a more comfortable shoe for summer trails and, you know, hard packed trails in general. So again, that's probably more similar to something like the Exodus, though I haven't tested the latest model of that shoe. shoe. But yeah, all around, a shoe that really fits my needs very well as a trail runner. So if you're someone similar to me who's doing a lot of easy runs on the trails, wants a shoe that you can run through the winter here in the UK where you are going to encounter mud and wet patches and stuff like that, but is otherwise also comfortable on the better trails throughout the summer and just harder surfaces in general, the Hierro does that job really well and it is nice and comfortable. So yeah, really enjoyed running in it. That's our review of the New Balance Hierro V9. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please like, subscribe, ring the little bell, and we'll see you next time.